All right, good morning, everybody. Take a look at our trade plan from last night. Do we need to update this at all? Let's see here. So last night we said holding above 782. We're going to look for 807, which is that value high, and then 830, which is around that extension level. And then holding below 52, we're going to look for 94, which is that overnight low. And then 58, which is that value retrace of Friday. So realistically, what we're looking for here is last week, probably the last couple of weeks, we haven't really been seeing these imbalances hold. The P-shape imbalances, the lowercase b imbalances, they haven't really been respected. They haven't been getting a lot of follow-through on the next couple of days. So we had a very obvious P-shape yesterday, and so far today we have kind of a micro pullback of that P-shape, but we don't have that follow-through. We don't have that value building above that value high. So today we really have to see if we're going to get that follow-through, or it's going to be the same that we've seen the last couple of weeks where it goes against that imbalance and kind of fades that lower tail and basically retraces the entire day, right? So right now it's a micro pullback, which is a very 50-50 type of day. So we don't really know just yet, but we will keep an eye on those value levels to see if they'll give us a bit of a warning. All right, so the trade plan on NASDAQ is the same as ES, micro pullback inside of that P-shaped profile of yesterday. Holding above that 356, we will look for 450 and 500. That is the extension to the upside. Holding below 207, we're going to look for 956, which also lines up with that overnight low pretty much to the tick. So the overnight low of yesterday and the value high of Friday are the same level. So keep an eye on that 956 and then a value retrace back down to that 675. But overall, same exact trade plan as ES with that micro pullback, obviously on top of a P shape. So there's a slight bullish bias, but really it's kind of a 50-50 until we build outside of that value. All right, there you guys go. I posted it in chat. Let's find our local point of origin levels. That is probably all we can take. We have one around like the mid 60s. We have high 70s and mid 80s. Looking at the couple of 30-minute candles right before the open, we had a little bit of sell pressure, but look at this long wick here, sweeping that 30-minute low. So we had a break of these 30-minute lows, but they are being protected. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Scott, Tachi, Future, Backbank, and Morris. Here's that trade plan for you guys. Good morning, Michael, Marcel, Broccoli, Banana, Michael, Super Dave, Patriot, Lulu, Nitro, Squintero, James, Jeremy, Trevor, Mauricio, JC, Roman, Greg, LDT, Larry, Igor, Astro, Boat. Good morning, guys. Good morning, Rogel, Curtis, Chuck, Fernando, 2013, Brad. Keep an eye on VWAP here. VWAP being tested at 300 on NASDAQ and 772 on ES. Basically opening right on VWAP. Good morning, Brad, Roman, Angelo, Fatal, Tamer, Lubomir, Krista, and Fernando. Good morning, everybody. So we're starting to retrace, not last week, but the week before. The value high goes up to around 805. So the swing traders are looking for that full retrace from that 750 to 805. The POC is kind of the high right now. It's around 790. Not exactly that level, but pretty close. 30-minute highs still being protected here. Incomplete auction of yesterday. Let me see. What are you referring to? If you're talking about yesterday's value low, no, because you can't have an incomplete auction until you leave value. You have to like leave it and then try to come back. This isn't really a retrace of yesterday because we never left yesterday. It's just an inside day. Complete failure of VWAP on NASDAQ. Starting to lose it on ES. A lot of bullish delta coming in on ES. Is an inside day always a D-shaped day? Not always, but even if it's not a D-shape, you almost treat it like a D-shape anyway. because most often inside days are just going to be choppy anyway. Was a really nice bear flag in the VWAP on NASDAQ. Not really getting it on ES, though. ES getting a ton of bullish delta holding you up here. Good morning, DS. Good morning, Joan. Appreciate you guys that stopped by for the Q&A yesterday. I'll have that finished with the edits later today, so you should see the cut up version by the end of today, depending on how long YouTube takes to process. Well, delta is the difference between market buyers and market sellers. So if it's 0, there is no difference. They are exactly the same. It's pretty rare. Zeros are almost like single prints, where if there is a 0, it's pretty often retested. Looks like ES is leading, pulling NASDAQ back up here. A lot of buy pressure on ES. Here's that point of origin being retested at 77. Which is also the value high of that micro pullback. Morning, LDM. Probably going to see a lot of this type of price action today, guys. Micro pullbacks are basically D-shaped profiles after an impulse day. We're going to talk about these more, not in this week's video, but in the volume profile video. I think did I talk about them a little bit in the candlestick video? I can't remember. But we'll cover it more in the volume profile video. But basically what happens when you have an imbalance day, like a very impulsive day up or down, the day after, if it's not like extremely aggressive, you have a balance, you have a D-shaped balance that just kind of consolidates and builds up that POC. So in this case, the P-shaped POC is obviously up here. So the D shape of today is just building up that same value area. The POCs are nearly identical. It's just a continuation of that same POC. Now, sometimes it does it for a little bit, and then later in the day it pushes out. But more often, you kind of close like this, where you have a very nasty chop that entire day. And then the following day, then you build value above the value high or below the value low, and that kind of confirms which way you're going. So today is a very 50-50 day, so be careful on this inside of the value range of yesterday. Now, obviously, it's a very wide value range. It's a 30-point range. So you can still trade that. And yes, it will be one directional on the lower time frames because it's a 30-point range. But it's not going to be too one directional on the higher time frames. Good morning, Darius. Rocks, unfortunately, man, the stuff like that, the psychology side of trading, I can tell you guys what you need to do, but it's just a personal battle, man. You already know what you have to do. It's just whether or not you're going to do it or not. The discipline side of trading is something I can't really help you guys with. It's like I said, it's kind of a personal battle. What helps me not overtrade is I treat this like a long-term business, and I understand that the market's not going anywhere. I don't need to make it big in one day. I don't need to go crazy in one day. If I miss a trade, or if I just don't find any good trades, maybe I don't trade at all that entire day, who cares? We have 249 other days in the year that I can trade. There's about 250 trading days in the year. I don't need to make it big on one of them. That's not including weekends, obviously. If you're a crypto trader, it's 365. Yeah, Trading in the Zone is probably the best book I can recommend, but like I said, it's all psychological. It's all in your brain. You know what you got to do. It's whether or not you can do it or not. And to help with FOMO, by the way, a lot of bearish pressure coming in here, failing that point of origin and that value high, right back to that value low. I'm going to sound like a broken record today because that's pretty much what you're going to be doing all day, is trading rotations. This lower rotation is nearly complete. Sorry, what I was saying was for the FOMO trades is what we talked about in the market structure video and the Q&A. I talked about it a lot in the Q&A yesterday about having optimal entries, right? You kind of tell yourself where you should be trading, and if it's outside that zone, you should not be trading. So you know if you're trading outside that zone, then you're just making a poor decision, and you need to stop doing that, right? But like I said, easier said than done. Here's that rotation being completed. Yeah, unfortunately, there's just no magical thing I can tell you guys that's going to rewire your brain chemistry, you know what I mean? You guys got to work on that, and it's a daily battle. You have to become as robotic as possible. Everything needs to be mechanical, and everything needs to be efficient, you know what I mean? You take a lot of the guesswork out of trading. I always use the example of the rollover top because it's one of the easiest examples for people to understand. But the rollover top example is like, I know with a rollover top that I should be taking the trade around that lower high. If I'm not taking the trade around the lower high, then I'm making a mistake. There's no like prediction that goes into that. It's very mechanical. I know that like this is where I should be trading on the rollover top. If I'm trading outside of that, then what am I doing? I'm making a human error. Failing to rotate here, by the way, bounced off the value low, quickly failing VWAP. Back into the value low here. If they stay below 68, they are looking to rotate yesterday's value, not today's value. So yesterday, we hit the value high here. We did not finish that rotation. We tried to bounce up into the value high again, did not finish it. So it looks like we are respecting yesterday's value and not today's value. It's always hard on an inside day. You don't know which one to respect. Good morning, Vivian. Good morning, Mauser. Good morning, Lucio. What is the MAG 7? Why does it have any value to trade correlate with ES? Well, that basically is ES and NASDAQ. The MAG 7 are the 7, like, basically the largest companies in the NASDAQ and ES. All ES and NASDAQ are basically a group of stocks and how they're moving together, right? So if the MAG 7's all moving one direction, then it's obviously going to push these indexes one direction. Most of those big companies have earnings not this week, but next week. Marcus, I would recommend checking out my sizing guide videos. I have a 50K and a 250K sizing guide. The 50K sizing guide can build up to a large contract, but you're better off with the 250K if you want to comfortably trade the large contracts. The 50Ks, you really want to be trading the micros for most of the account. All right, what is yesterday's value low? It is 53. So if it continues here, that is what it's looking for. Here's the overnight low. Very weak value on the push down into the overnight low here. Not really seeing a ton of delta down there. When in doubt, size down. Yeah, for the most part. Mags have make up nearly 60% of the NASDAQ. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. They've got a lot of weight. I don't know if it makes sense to change your position size. It does a lot of the times. I wouldn't change it on a daily basis. But if you're struggling with the size, you should definitely be changing it. Or if like volatility is dramatically different one week than the next week, you should be changing your size. The market is not always the same. People try to fit their like system into the market every single day as if the market is this exact same thing on a week by week basis. They try to trade the same exact setups with the same exact P&L, stop loss, and target. They try to trade the same exact size. That's not how the market works. You have to be able to adapt on the fly to what the market is doing. Now, it's like I said, it's not a daily thing. You don't have to change like every single day. But the market is not the same one week as it is the next week a lot of the times. For example, look at our liquidity in the market the last couple of weeks compared to what we had before that. Before that, we were trading at a 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever contract per tick liquidity. And now we're trading at back to like 30 or less. The last week, we were trading like 10 to 20 contracts per tick. How can you track your system with changing size? You just track the volatility. You can track ATR. There's many ways to track volatility. The easiest way that I do it is with the ATR indicator that I made. ATR improved. If you go on TradingView, it's completely free. And usually you want to track it on regular hours because the extended hours kind of skews the data a little bit. Yeah, look at this. Just for example, look at the change in volatility just in the last week to this week. We were spiking at 27 points, 24 points, 18 points, 21 points. We were trading at an average of like 13 to, let's say, 11. Now we're trading at an average of 3.5. We're nowhere near the same market that we were 2 weeks ago. Now, if the changes are relatively small, I'm not adapting my strategy on the fly. It's when they have massive changes, like when we see really big shifts in liquidity, when we see really big shifts in volatility, that's when you got to think about it. If it's changing a point here or there, a couple points here and there, that's not really a big deal. Good morning, C-Mac. Good morning, AT. Yeah, Dennis, it would be easier for me to track if you guys put all your tickets in like one email. Oh, for that, Dennis, sorry, I didn't finish reading your question before I answered it. You don't want to wait until the end of the series for the comments, because I do those on the fly. So like I'm doing giveaways throughout the series. So like right now, later today, I'm going to be doing a giveaway on Discord access for everybody that sent me their tickets. So for the comments, you can send those just throughout the series. It's not a big deal. But like for like your Apex accounts, don't send like one email per Apex account. If you have like 5 Apex accounts that you use code BREW for, put them all into one email. Still failing to rotate, by the way. Still looking for yesterday's value low instead of today's rotation. They need to stay above like 68 if they want to go back into today's rotation. But yeah, I'm doing giveaways throughout the series except for the laptop giveaway. That one is going to be at the very end. Good morning, Mark. All right, we're nearly finishing the rotation of yesterday. It would go up to, or sorry, down to 53, somewhere around that area. Yeah, at the end of the day, you need to trade a position size that is low enough to where it can deal with fluctuations in the volatility. So you don't have to change your size that often. But obviously, if the volatility changes dramatically, you're still going to have to adjust your size a bit. But you should trade, like I said, a size that is comfortable in most conditions. If you have to change your size more than once, like on a weekly basis, your size is probably too large. you're probably not comfortable trading that size. You shouldn't have to change it more than like once a week, if that. Once every couple weeks, even. It really just depends on what's going on with the market. Like next week, we're probably going to be pretty high volatility because of the earnings. Very large earnings next week. The vast majority of the time, and I can say this probably with a certainty, that probably more than half the people in chat right now are trading a larger size than they should be. People are way too sized up most of the time. Thinking too short term and not long term, right? Like I said, you got to understand there's 250 trading days in the year. You don't need to size up and make it big in one day. This is a game of patience. Yeah, I can't tell you guys whether you're using like too much size or too little size entirely. If you're using Apex accounts, then I can say it's too big or too large, or too big or too small. But if you're using like a personal account, that's completely up to you, right? Size is 100% relative. But I can base it off of like if you're using a 50k Apex or like a 250k Apex, I can say, okay, based on how big that account actually is, if you think about like the trailing drawdown, that's kind of like your account size, then you shouldn't be trading XYZ, right? So I can base it off that. But if you're using a personal account, that's kind of a personal battle, right? You got to figure out what size is right for you. Money is completely relative, which is why we don't talk about money on this stream. $100 a day for some people would be life-changing. $100 a day for other people would be like chump change, right? It's completely relative to the person. If you guys are following my sizing guides, you're relatively close to that size, I think you're okay. You should not be able to blow your accounts up, whether it's Apex or any other prop firm. You should not be able to blow your accounts up in a couple of days. Honestly, even within like a week, you should not be able to blow them up. If you're blowing them up that fast, you're trading too much size, or you're just trading too much. You're taking too many trades. Keep an eye on 53 as that is the full retrace, or I should say rotation, because we're technically not retracing. Full rotation of yesterday. Yeah, Marcus, I used to talk about that a lot back in the option days. We used to mark out the expected move and whatnot. There's a lot of options tricks that you can do for futures trading, like gamma levels and the expected moves and whatnot. I just don't really do them all the time. It's like an added thing that's not really necessary. Good morning, Yusa. Do I think 1% portfolio per trade risk is good? You can't use numbers like that in futures trading. Futures trading doesn't work like that. You can't use these like standard portfolio percentage things. It just doesn't work in the futures world. Futures are extremely leveraged, and account size doesn't really mean anything if you're using like a real account, right? Not like a prop account. The reason I say that is, like, for example, if you're in a stock account The goal is to continuously, by the way, 30-minute sweep on the low here. Keep an eye on 65, reclaiming that value low. With a stock account, the goal is to continuously build that account, right? You want to endlessly grow that money so you can use it to make more money, right? You don't really want to make a lot of withdrawals from your stock account. That's not the same thing with futures. Futures, you treat it like a prop firm account where you get to a certain number and you're like, okay, that number allows me to trade the size that I want to trade. So now once it gets above that number, let's say my account's $10,000 and it gets to $15,000, I withdraw $5,000 and I do it again. And I rinse and repeat. I do it again. I do it again. I do it again. Futures is not it's not a game that we want to keep building our account. It has no purpose in futures. We want to be using that money in a stock account, investing it, whatever, right? So because of that, because it is so heavily leveraged, and we don't really care about the actual dollar amount in the account, we cannot use a percentage as a reasonable goal or risk or target or whatever. None of those percentages work. It's like going to work and get paid. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, futures accounts are just not treated like other accounts. Options accounts, stock accounts. You want to keep building those accounts up as much as you can, obviously. Obviously, if you're full-time trading, you have to pull money out for bills and whatnot. But other than that, you want to be leaving as much money in those accounts as humanly possible, because money makes more money in that sense, right? That's not how futures accounts work. The futures account itself is not making you money. It is you trading that is making you money. But in the stock and options accounts, they're more so investments, so the account itself is making you money. Whether that be in like dividends or money market funds or whatever the hell. Yes, you can gunk, but there is a massive diminishing return there. Obviously, trading is a glass ceiling. You can build up infinitely. But let's be reasonable here. Who is going to do that? Nearly nobody is going to do that. Nobody is going to keep scaling and keep scaling and keep scaling and then still, it still works. It is a massive diminishing return. Keep an eye on VWAP here. It could be a bear flag in the VWAP like it was earlier. VWAP is the failure to rotate level, so if they can't stay above VWAP, they are failing to rotate. They are trying to rotate back into 75. But yeah, there's like this massive fallacy in trading that people have had for forever. And the fallacy is like, oh, if you're trading one contract and you're doing so good, why not just trade 100 contracts? Just do the same thing that you're doing, just add a couple of zeros to it, and it won't make any difference. You'll just make more money. That's a massive fallacy, right? The more contracts you trade, the more it destroys the psychological side of trading, right? The more emotional you get, you make more bad decisions. Your system falls apart. So you can't just infinitely add zeros to your size and it's going to be exactly the same. Nobody will ever run into this issue in this stream unless we actually have like hedge fund people watching the stream. But obviously it would get to a point where you would have liquidity issues as well. But nobody's going to have liquidity issues as a retail trader. Yeah, long story short, the whole idea with trading is being consistent and being comfortable. If you keep sizing up, you're constantly in a position that you're not comfortable with. By the way, you're failing VWAP. Still failing to rotate, showing a bearish bias here. Every time you size up, you're not comfortable because you're not used to that size. So then you're breaking your consistency. You want to do it to a point that you're like, okay, this is where I want to be. I can continue to scale, but do it very, very slowly. It's why I talk about in the sizing guides, like when you size up, if you start losing, you go right back to that old size because you're not comfortable with that new size. So now you got to go back, get comfortable again. And the whole point of the sizing guides are to like train you guys into this mentality of like finding a size that you're comfortable with. Still failing to rotate here. VWAP traders holding you down. I was getting slow and steady payouts, got overconfident and sized up and blew the funded account. Yeah, that's very common. That's unfortunately very common. That's why I tell people when they get to a funded account after the sizing guide, you want to size back down to go back to somewhere that you're very comfortable. I think I forgot to post the stream alerts today. Let me see. Pretty sure I did. Yeah, I did. Let me post that now. Like I always say, guys, there's so many things that I can like tell you guys that like this is the way to do it. But at the end of the day, trading is an extremely personal battle. You're gonna have to make like minor tweaks to like all these things that I say and figure out what works for you. I'm just speaking as like I know what works for most people. So I'm trying to speak to the most people I can, making these like kind of blanket statements, but it doesn't work for everybody. You're always going to have to make these minor tweaks. At the end of the day, I'm just telling you guys like what works for me. You can try it out. If it works for you, then it works for you. If it doesn't, try something else. I'm not ever telling you guys this is the only way you can do things. So you're saying stick to a number amount instead of a percentage amount? Percentages mean absolutely nothing in futures. They just do not work in futures trading. The whole idea of futures trading is massive, massive leverage. Using percentages on a massive leverage account just doesn't make sense. I can use $500 in a futures account and trade tens of thousands of dollars. So using like a percentage of that account doesn't really make sense. So you want to base it on like points, base it on contracts, stuff like that. Hey, Dave, have a good day, man. Yeah, I can't really help you with the cushion thing on your accounts because that's all going to be based on what you're averaging like per trade, what you're averaging per like day. Like if you're making $1,000 a day, then obviously your cushion's going to be a lot different than if you can only make $200 a day, right? So I can't really help you guys with what an exact cushion should be. You need to base it on how much you're averaging on your good days and how many bad days could you afford before you blow the account up. You need to find a number that makes sense. Like if I could have 3 bad days and blow the account up and I'm okay with that, then okay. If you want to have 5 bad days and you blow the account up, then there you go. Just do the math for that, right? Once again, completely personal. Right now, what is happening is we are in a D-shaped micro pullback, as we talked about in our trade plan. We are rotating from one side of the value area to the other. They finished a lower rotation. They tried to bounce back into an upper rotation and failed VWAP. Now they are trying to bounce again. They're trying to go back into that upper VWAP, or sorry, the upper value area, the value high. They're just stalling on VWAP. Good morning, Michael. Yeah, literally everything in trading comes down to comfort, right? You need to just make yourself comfortable. Because being uncomfortable, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to lose money. So if you're more comfortable having a larger cushion and protecting yourself, then do that. Like I said, you want to be as robotic as possible. The more comfortable you are, the more robotic you'll be. More mechanical you'll be. Like I said, guys, my stream is a very boring stream, right? I'm not here to be exciting and give you guys all these exciting answers that you want to hear. I'm telling you guys what you need to hear. If you want someone to lie to you and tell you you're going to get rich quick and trading is easy and all that other bullshit, this definitely ain't the channel for you. Keep an eye on the session VWAP at 275 on NASDAQ. You have ignored VWAP on ES continuing into that upper rotation. Upper rotation goes into Actually, like right here. So if it does not stall here, it is respecting yesterday's value and looking for 82. You have failed to rotate 2 times on yesterday's value rotation. We hit the value high here, did not hit the value low, did not hit the value low. So someone asked earlier if it was an incomplete auction. It's not an incomplete auction because it's an inside day. It's the same thought process where we should be going down here, but we're not. But because it's an inside day, it's just a rotation. It's not an incomplete auction. An incomplete auction is like when you're finding value up here, then you try to come back down, then you bounce. It's a failed retrace, not a failed rotation. So if we stay above this level here, look for 82. Trade ES or NASDAQ? I prefer ES because it's a little bit slower. It's a little bit more methodical. NASDAQ is more for the scalpers. It's a lot faster. But you get a lot of fast like wicks or fast reactions that will kind of hunt you on NASDAQ. I prefer ES, but once again, it's a personal thing. Getting very aggressive on this move up, almost one time framing on the 1 minute, which is very difficult to do. We have a pretty wide initial balance today, trading nearly 20 points. Yeah, and that's the reason a lot of traders prefer NASDAQ, because they're not trading the way they should be. They're treating it like gambling, right? NASDAQ is closer to gambling than ES. NASDAQ is, like you said, it's more dopamine. I'm not saying everybody that trades NASDAQ is doing that. I'm just saying that if there was a, what would you call it? Like a Venn diagram of like all the traders that are treating trading like gambling, and how many of those traders are NASDAQ traders, pretty much all of them would be NASDAQ traders. But not all of the NASDAQ traders would be gamblers, right? NASDAQ is a lot faster. It gets the blood pumping a bit more dopamine. I don't like that, right? Like I said, I like being more robotic. There's a reason that most channels that stream trading stream NASDAQ. And I'm sure you guys can figure that one out. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with trading NASDAQ. Like I said, it's not every NASDAQ trader is like that. Here's that 77 point of origin yet again. Possibly a bear flag into the session VWAP on NASDAQ as well. Damn, gold's down 5% today. I didn't see that. Nasty day for gold. What I was going to say is NASDAQ, a lot of the times, or sometimes, has really clean patterns that ES does not have. Like some days you'll get a perfect bear flag and a VWAP, kind of like what we're seeing right now on NASDAQ, but you won't get it on ES. So you'll get a pattern on NASDAQ that's just super clean that won't happen on ES. So sometimes you do have to jump on board those. I appreciate that, Joe. I'm glad you liked him. Yeah, if you're like a NASDAQ trader and you've been trading NASDAQ for years, if you go to ES, you're going to fall asleep. You're going to need like multiple cups of coffee to keep you awake. It is much slower than NASDAQ. Like, obviously, you're thinking, like, how can one be slower than the other? They kind of do the same exact thing. But if you're looking at, like, the average amount of points you can pull from something, like, let's take a bear flag and a VWAP, for example. If I short a bear flag and a VWAP on ES and a bear flag and a VWAP on NASDAQ, the amount of points that I can get out of NASDAQ per my risk is going to be a lot more and a lot faster than ES. So they're going to do relatively the same thing, but one's going to be faster. And you can't really think about it in percentages because it doesn't really work, but the percentage would be higher on NASDAQ. Yeah, it's a good way to put it, Zach. And that's actually what I tell people in my tutoring sessions when they ask me this question. They ask me if they should trade ES or NASDAQ. And I say, like, if you're trying to micro scalp, like if you're trying to be in and out very quickly, you don't like holding positions for very long, then you want to be more of a NASDAQ trader. Because ES is a lot more patient. You have to wait for these trades to play out, which I like. I like having to sit back and kind of just let it do its thing. Point of origin still holding on the high here. Going back into a lower rotation. Like I said, guys, D-shape micro pullback. You're going to be seeing this possibly the entire day. How long do I wait for my setups to play out? My typical trade time is around 45 minutes. "45 minutes to an hour would be like the entire trade, like with the runners and everything. The first target is probably closer to like maybe 15 or 30. But the entire trade is like 45 minutes to an hour. Another attempt to fail this rotation, trying to bounce off VWAP again. Do you mean like all the low wicks right here? So basically what happened here is what I always talk about with a bear flag and a VWAP. You want it to be one smooth motion back down if you are failing VWAP. You do not want to see the lows being protected. You do not want to see a higher low coming in. If it's putting in a higher low, then that bear flag and a VWAP has failed. For example, look at this bear flag and a VWAP. They failed VWAP. It was a little bit of a trap. A little bit of that cupping trap that I talked about yesterday. Look at this. One smooth motion back to that prior low. That is what you want to see. Now, this would not be a bear flag and a VWAP on ES. It's more of just a rotation. It failed the point of origin on the high. It failed the value high. Here is the lower rotation at 65. Another thing we always talk about, look at these 30-minute candles. When you have a D-shape rotation, you very often have these large body, long wick, small body. They're called long-legged dojis, right? You have large wicks, small bodies on the 30-minute candles. This one had a larger body, but look at the value. The value is evenly distributed throughout the entire candle, right? Very balanced. But very often you have these like two-directional candles where it's not just pushing in one direction. Long-legged dojis, long wick dojis. Today you're seeing a prime example of what I talk about with not wanting to be a breakout buyer in responsive markets, right? Not wanting to be a breakout one-directional buyer or seller. I said buyer, I meant trader. Buyer or seller in a D-shaped market, right? You don't want to be a trader trying to buy the breakouts of value highs or buy the breakdowns of value lows when the rotations are constantly being finished, right? All right, I'd say at this point, these point of origins have been used up. I'm going to leave that one, actually, because that one's getting really good reactions. There is, like, this level being tested right now. You're basically on a cliff, like on that value low of yesterday. That's the last thing protecting you. Large traders shifting to the sell side. They were mostly buy side until about 10:25. That point of origin is getting a reaction here. Buyers trying to protect that 30-minute low. The CME gap, did we have a gap? Do you mean like the gap from like a week or two ago? We kind of filled the gap, but we didn't like completely fill it. The problem with the gap is, I say if it can be seen on the daily, it's a problem. It needs to be filled in. It can't be seen on the daily. There is no daily gap there. There is a small one going down to 702, which has been wicked. But that's not even the gap that people are looking at. People are looking at the gap that was down here at 602. That has also been wicked, but it can't be seen on the daily. So typically with these gaps, the ones that get wicked, they do act as a magnet and pull price back into them. You typically want to see a body of a candle filling in the gap. I wouldn't say it's that much of a worry because it's not a massive daily gap. But if we do start going down, you could use it as a target. I wouldn't really say it's a reason to go down, but it could be a target, is basically long story short. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not seeing headlines about gold. It's down 5.5%. Those lines outside the gold store is going to turn into bread lines. Here's that 618, 41.25. Like I said, this week, if it closed green, it would be the first time in, what do we say, 50 years, 70 years, somewhere around there? I think it was 50 years. It'll be the first time in 50 years that gold closed green 10 times in a row. So it looks like that's not going to be the case if this keeps up. This is my problem with perma traders. Perma bulls or perma bears. I'm not going to go into this long ass rant again, but this is the exact thing that I always talk about. People have been posting about gold every single day, every single hour, every single minute. Now it's down 5.25%, and it's crickets. Nobody's posting about it anymore. The perma-traders always go silent the second their perma-bias is shattered. Uh, 10 weeks. 10 weeks straight. Well, I don't talk about that in the video, Marcus, because once again, I can't really talk about that. It's all up to your system. It's all personal. I can't say that, like, you're always going to use a 5-point stop or whatnot. But if you're basing your trades off of the trades that I teach in my playbook series, the stops are usually fairly tight. But it's all based on current volatility, so you have to give it some wiggle room. And those are also on ES, not NASDAQ, so 5 points on ES and 5 points on NASDAQ are not the same thing. But yeah, I talk about giving yourself like a risk to reward of like 1.25 to 1.5 at least, and having multiple exits. So as long as you can keep a stop loss where it should be, right? Being protected by value levels, being protected by highs and lows, whatever it may be. As long as that stop loss can be protected and you can maintain that risk to reward, then you're good. But there is no set number. There is no holy grail. If you go for a 1-to-1 risk to reward, you're making trading pretty hard on yourself because you have to be above a 50% win rate at all times. You have to factor in like commissions and everything. 1-to-1 is stressful. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and losing streaks. Yep. It's always just good to have like an idea of like, oh, if I have like 1.25 or 1.5 or whatever. The thought of like, if I win this trade or win a couple trades, it pays for my losing trades, right? I can lose a trade for free, basically, which, I mean, it's not for free, but you get what I mean. But if you're doing 1-to-1, there is no leeway. Yeah, but it sounds like, Marcus, it sounds like you're doing the cardinal sin of, like, you're basing your stop loss on a P&L number or, like, a point number or something like that. You just can't do that. That's not how the market works. The market doesn't give a shit about your stop loss that is $100 away, right? You need to base it on levels that make sense. A lot of mistakes that traders make is they are trying to get the market to adapt to their system instead of the other way around. They're not adapting their system to the chaotic market. By the way, rinse and repeat. Like I said, guys, I'm not going to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again today. It's the same exact thing over and over. You're selling the value high, you're buying the value low. These rotations are happening again and again and again. It is a micro pullback D-shaped profile. Nothing has changed. The value high is being sold yet again. Point of origin being sold yet again. But yeah, people try to, like, they try to get the market to fit into their narrative, into their system, instead of adapting their system to the market. Good morning, Tom. What's going on? All good, Tom. Welcome back, man. Ordinary, what's going on, man? I don't think I saw you earlier. Yeah, it's always good to take a break every now and then, especially if you're hitting a wall, right? Oh, you don't got to tell me, Vaughn. I know what I'm doing, man. I've been doing this for a long time. Like I said, I've got catchphrases on this stream. I repeat the same thing so many times. I could damn near turn my stream into a soundboard. That'd be a nice remix, yeah. The same thing we said earlier with the failure to rotate. You keep failing to rotate on VWAP, but it's not doing anything, right? You keep failing to rotate, which then triggers it to push back into the value level, but there's no second leg, right? What happens after that? After that, it's supposed to build value outside of the value area to start breaking balance. We have not done that today. So we're doing step 1, we're not doing step 2. Yeah, Joe, I try to think of it on more of like a weekly to monthly basis, not a daily basis. Like, I have daily goals, but if I don't hit it, it's not like the end of the world. You try to think about it long term. Pull the fibs on what, Mauricio? What do you mean? Like, pull the fibs on, you mean on ES, on the D shape? I don't really do that anymore. A couple of things in my old videos I don't do too much anymore are the like fib stuff inside of the ranges. The initial balance stuff that I was teaching back in the day. I don't do a lot of that stuff anymore because that was when I was trading futures in the afternoon. And I was trading stocks and options or crypto in the morning. So they were kind of like afternoon techniques. Yeah, Gunk, I had the idea of like down the road, if I could get the Athena bot to a level where like I could, it's almost like Alexa, like I could have it pulled up on the stream and I could say something to it and have it voice over on the stream. But that'd be a project for a long time. That's not going to be anytime soon. That'd be pretty cool, though. Once I'm done with this new series, I'm going to feed all the videos and the Q&As into the Athena bot to keep her up to date, or keep it up to date, right? They're probably valid. You can probably still use them. I just don't use them anymore because I'm trading in the morning. Those were things that I would like come in and check on futures around like 12 o'clock or like after 12 o'clock. And I'd pull the fibs, I'd pull the initial balance and all that stuff, do all those little fancy things. I don't need to do that anymore because I'm actively trading it in the morning. Which, by the way, we are starting to break balance a little bit here. If we stay above that 75 level. It has failed to break balance every single time today, so this would have to be the different time, right? This would have to be the one time that it worked. We need to see a lot of value building above 75, and we need to see that value being protected. Yeah, those fib levels are for people that are not volume profile traders. It's a lot easier to see that on a volume profile. It's kind of pointless if you're a volume profile trader. You don't need to do that. Because the volume profile does that for you. You have the value high and the value low. If you're a price action trader and you don't like volume profile, then you can take the range and you can look at the quadrants, the four sections, right? But if you're trading volume profile, like I said, it's pointless. Because you have the middle of the volume profile with like the POC and VWAP. You have the upper quadrant being the value high and the lower quadrant being the value low. There's no need to do both. I think it was even lower than that, Joe. You can watch some of my old videos and you'd be amazed at the prices. I think Ethereum was below like $300. Bitcoin was like $3,000, maybe less than that. And then ES was like, I think in the 3,000s or something. The prices were very, very different. Okay, finally breaking balance. So that failure to rotate has actually shifted into a uptrend here, holding on to the ADMA. Bounced off VWAP to the tick. That was the first failure to rotate today that actually turned into a break of balance. Excuse me. And here is the 82 level, which is the value high of yesterday. So this break of balance looks like we're doing this massive market structure shift, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's not really doing a whole lot until we stay above 82. So we are breaking structure on the current day, but on the overlapping day, we need to hold above 82, then we can extend that tail. Which if you want to take a tail extension, you would just grab the lower tail here. You would pull that to the upper tail. And you would say, okay, if we're going for an extension, it's looking for somewhere around here. It doesn't have to be exact. But somewhere around like 841. That's if today got extremely bullish. They're picking a bad time to push this candle because look at what time it is. 30-minute candle closing in 4 minutes, and it will create single prints if they are holding above 80. Let's go ahead and raise our scale today. It's getting a little bit wide. Still very aggressive, holding on to that ADMA. Keep an eye on the 30-minute close, going to create single prints going down to 80, probably about 80, yeah, 80 to 82. Largest single day decline in gold since 2013. The Magic 9 strikes again on gold. If you look at absolute numbers, no doubt the figure will be large. We need to look at percentage. It is percentage. Pretty much any time someone ever says something like that, like it's the largest decline or whatever, it's always percentage. You would hope that traders wouldn't make a mistake like that. Single print's going down to 80... It's 82, but 80 technically, if you want the full retrace. Wow, silver is down 8.7%. Largest decline since 2021. This goes back to what I was talking about the other day about how cycles like this, could it go higher? Yeah, sure, it could go higher. But if you're a buyer up here, the risk you're taking is massive, right? You don't want to be buying into cycles that have already gone up that much in that short amount of time. It's like a vertical distribution, right? You don't want to be a breakout buyer in something like that. What's the reason behind a D shape? Why does it happen? I would recommend reading Dalton's books on that. He's going to do a much better job than I can explain it. But you're basically asking a question on auction market theory, and I can't really go too in depth on that. Dalton's books, Mind Over Markets and Markets in Profile, are very good reads. Single prints have been filled in. He has a newer book. I don't like it as much as the Mind Over Markets. I would still recommend Mind Over Markets as the #1 book. I'm more of a technical guy. His newer book is more of a psychological book. It's not bad, it's just a different style. I think his new book is less structured. I'd agree with that, yeah. I think, like I said, I think the Mind Over Markets book is the best one. Okay, they have built a node outside of value here. That is the first thing you need to do to confirm that break of balance. The second thing you need to do is protect that node. So what do I mean by protecting the node? If you think about it, think about this node as like the D shape, where it's just rotating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We want this to fail to rotate downward and continue to break balance to the upside, right? So we want to start seeing much more buy pressure on that node than sell pressure. We want to see absorption, failures to rotate, etc., right? Overlapping wicks, whatever. Many things you can look for, but the idea is, like I said, you think about it like a value area, think about those rotations, you want to see it fail to rotate. The exact same thing it did to push up, it failed to rotate. It went down to VWAP, it bounced off VWAP, and it ripped higher. If this was the value area of the entire day, we treat it the same exact way. We want to see the value low being protected and possibly failing to rotate on like the POC. If that doesn't happen, then it's not breaking balance and you're going right back into the same value area. Yeah, in the simplest form, I'm a reversal trader, but that doesn't mean that I'm only looking for positions that go against like the prevailing trend. I'm still trying to follow the prevailing trend a lot of the times, but I'm looking for little micro reversals or micro traps inside of that trend. All of my trading sums up to shifts in momentum. Literally every single thing I teach can be summed up into that. That's what the Momo was designed for. It's what the OTS was designed for. Pretty much any indicator I've made was designed for that. What do I recommend to start trading in the afternoon? Afternoon trading is almost identical to morning trading. It's just slower. Like the patterns are pretty much the exact same. It's just a lot slower a lot of the times. Volume goes down very, very quickly after 12 o'clock. Most of the time, unless there's like some kind of data or news or something. There are other strategies that you can use that are only in the afternoon. The main strategy that I teach is the afternoon reversal, which is looking at the difference in the morning value and the afternoon value. It's one of the strongest patterns we have seen in the past couple of years, to be honest. And the fact that afternoon value is just not respected. So either the same day or the following day, that afternoon value will be retraced with a very high, excuse me, with a very high likelihood. Very high probability. And you can backtest this as far back as you want. It's an extremely accurate pattern. The morning profile goes from 9:30 to 12 o'clock, and the afternoon profile goes from 12 o'clock to 4 p.m. Eastern time. Any value that is found outside of the morning value is typically retested that same day or the following day. It's one of those patterns where, like, we know it's going to happen. Trading it is a little bit difficult because we have to figure out when is it going to happen. So we have to still look for all those reversal trades that we like to look for, the rollover tops or the sweeps or whatever. It's like a gap. You know it's going to get filled in, you just don't know when. So the timing is the problem. But this is the leading trade in the afternoon, is finding that reversal point. And for you guys that trade overnight, it's also a very good trade because of something like this, where it did not get repaired on the same day. It got repaired on the following day in the overnight. So you guys that trade in the European or Asian hours, that's a very good thing to look for. What day is that? Friday the 10th? I'll show you here. So this one was a little bit harder because it repaired it with a gap. But you can see the overnight repaired that afternoon break. We didn't really get to trade that on my hours, the morning hours, because it was already repaired. So sometimes that will happen. So that's a good trade for the afternoon and for the European and Asian hours. But other than that particular strategy, everything else is the same. All the other trades that I look for in the morning, I still look for in the afternoon. That is the only one that you guys don't hear me talk about a whole lot on stream, because we talk about it in Discord, because it's an afternoon system. Literally, one of the first things you guys see on my Discord stream is we mark out, it's on my Addis chart actually, so it's actually on this chart. I mark out the, here, yeah, there you go, I even have it saved. I mark out the morning low and the morning high. So like today's morning low is there, and then so far today, the morning high is here. So anything outside of this will be a break. And we'll look for that to be repaired either the same day or the following day. I think recently, let me double check this. Recently it has been more repaired on the same day. So like right here, this is NASDAQ by the way, so same pattern on NASDAQ. Same day repair, same day repair, same day repair. Actually, no, that was the following day on that one. This one had multiple. This one had a same day repair here, but then it closed and then the following day repaired it. Same day repair there, same day repair there, same day repair, following day repair, same day, same day. That one didn't have a breakout, which is very rare. Same day. Almost the same day, but it was the following day. So most of the time, it is the same day. If it's not the same day, it's the following day. Like I said, very, very strong pattern. We've been talking about that for years now. It's become very prevalent in the last, like, year or two. In the afternoon, the slowness can test you. Yeah, you definitely have to be patient in the afternoon. The volume is a lot lower. I mean, look at our volume since the open. It's already fallen off a cliff. 127 down to... It's actually not fallen too bad. Down to 108. We'll see where this one closes. It actually usually falls off more than that, so it's actually not too bad today. Very, very small sweep right here. Sweep on the high. Look for a rollover, possibly putting in a lower high. It is not protecting that node, so we are not breaking balance anymore. Like I said, there's always two things you look for. Not one thing, two things. You have to find value outside of the value area, and you have to protect it. If you find value outside the value area and you don't protect it, it turns into a failure, right? It goes back into that rotation. It could become absorption, could become a sweep, rollover, whatever. It pulls you back to that value area. Funny enough, same idea that we were just talking about with the afternoon break, right? The afternoon value is not trusted, it pulls back to the morning value. Same thing here. The break of balance is not trusted, it pulls back to the opening value. Going back to gold, what's even worse, if this is the top, I'm not saying it is, but if it is the top, when people buy spot gold, like when they line up at gold stores and buy spot gold, you're paying a pretty chunky premium on that gold, right? So you almost need it to go up immediately if you're trying to turn a profit on that. If it tops out immediately, you're underwater very, very quickly because you're already underwater when you buy it. So it just gets even worse. What's the most reliable? You mean like trade-wise? It changes. So like some weeks the bear flag or bull flag in a VWAP is very, very reliable. I'd say a few months ago it was the rollovers. The rollover tops and bottoms were like extremely accurate. Now we're turning more into a vertical distribution, vertical downward accumulation market, so the rollovers are not as good right now. So it changes. There's no like set in stone one thing's better than the other. Right now, VWAP is king. VWAP is very powerful right now. Also, single prints. Single prints are fantastic right now. Yesterday, the high of day, like damn near to the exact tick, was that single print fill-in. Almost to the exact tick. I think for a little bit it was the exact tick. So right now, the single print trades in VWAP are very, very strong. That's pretty funny. You both said the exact same thing. Yeah, buying a new car. Exactly, yep. So it's like buying a new car, you're instantly negative. I mean, nowadays it's not as bad, I don't think. Like, cars, well, I guess, yeah, it depends what you buy. But some cars are doing a really good job nowadays holding their value. Obviously, if they're not luxury vehicles never hold their value. One of the easiest ways to burn money. But things like what F-150s, RAV4s, like the cars that are the top selling cars in America, they do a pretty good job holding their value. Yeah, Toyotas, right. Tacoma 2005. Yeah, you got one of the good Tacomas, like the early 2000s Tacomas. Aren't those the ones that recently they were like having all kinds of issues, transmission issues, they were like driving themselves, all that shit. But back in the day, the Tundras, the Tacomas, they were extremely reliable. The Tundras pre V8 going away, right? When they took away the V8s from the Tundras and the Tacomas, they started getting worse. Yeah, CMAC, it's extremely helpful for a lot of people, man. That's why I tell people to test out different charting, like ways of charting, see which one works for you, right? Renko bars, range bars, candlesticks, whatever. Tick charts. I went through that entire process. It took me years, right? I tried out tick charts and Renko charts for a very long time. By the way, keep an eye on VWAP here. That break of balance has failed. Unfortunately, you did not get a rollover top here. It was just a sweep. They did not give you that lower high. The sweep is working, though. But yeah, for years, man, I went through that testing phase of seeing what works. And I just always came back to candlesticks. I just always felt like I was missing something if I wasn't looking at candlesticks. And yeah, like you said, you could have them side by side. You could do both. One thing that I used to do, which I might be able to show here really quickly, let me see. I don't know how it's going to calculate these. These are ticks, not points. Okay, let me, let's go to 16. All right, that's a little too slow. So here's the problem with Renko. You got to find one that's like a good speed. We'll go back to 8. So one thing I used to do is I would watch like the moving averages on a Renko chart because the moving averages were like very clean on a Renko chart. So you'd have to find a speed on the Renko chart that is like pretty one-directional. That's kind of the entire purpose of Renko, is you want it to cut out the chop. So you want it to be fairly one-directional. And then you can kind of see how the EMAs are being respected on the Renko and when that market structure shift is happening. That's something I used to do. But yeah, at the end of the day, I always just come back to candlesticks. Candlesticks are just my vibe, my style. Yeah, Forerunners have really good value as well, yep. If you bought anything like that, like any Toyotas around COVID, well, I mean, before the massive price increase during COVID, any Toyotas, any Forerunners, pretty much any trucks, they're probably worth more than what you paid for them. They still haven't gone back down. I mean, even RAV4s, they're up to like 50K. And that's the most purchased vehicle in America, I believe, outside of like the trucks. And those things used to be like 30K, maybe like 35K for like all the bells and whistles. Nowadays, if you get a premium one, like absolutely everything, I think it's like 50K or more. It's kind of crazy. Well, down south, you got to worry about the salt and shit from, like, if you're talking about, like Florida, Louisiana, like, if they're on the coast, I heard their vehicles get destroyed. Just buy a Porsche if you don't want to lose money. Do Porsches actually hold their value, though? And I know it's technically Porsche, but I'm not posh, so... I'm just a silly American, right? Porsche. Yeah, I'm never in the mindset of like wasting money on luxury cars or anything like that. But if I was gonna blow some money, just burn money in a fire, it would probably be a GT3 RS or one of those in that line. Those are all beautiful. Yeah, like I said, luxury cars are you're literally just burning money. Waste all your time trading throughout the year to burn it in a fire. No thanks. I work hard for my money. I like to keep my money. That's a funny thing about trading. Funny thing about traders that treat trading like that, like trying to get rich quick, treat it like gambling, whatever. What do those type of traders always spend their money on? They always spend their money on shit that just depreciates instantly. So they did all this hard work to earn their money in trading, and they went and just threw it in a fire. I'll never understand that. I'm the Warren Buffett style of trading. Living well under your means and keeping your money. Yeah, Dennis, you could look at the POC. You're talking about October 10th, I believe. You can look at the POC as a level there, as a target. What do I like spending money on? I don't spend money, man. I barely spend money on anything. I'm like one of the least materialistic people you'll probably ever meet. I've been wearing the same pair of shoes for like 10 years. Have I finally opened the iPhone? No, I have not, man. It's sitting right next to me in the box with the seal on it. PC parts? Not really, man. I mean, I do spend money on PCs when I do, but I buy a new PC. I try to buy one like every 4 years. Every like 3 to 4 years. Once it starts like slowing down and stuttering and causing me issues, I buy a new one. But I'm not like, oh, they released a new graphics card. Let me go drop $2,000 on it. I spent almost $5,000 on this PC. It's very, very expensive. But it's because I do what I just said. When I upgrade my PC, I try to buy like the best possible parts they have at the time, so it will last me years, and I don't have to keep upgrading, right? So I overpay, and then I don't buy another one for like 5 years. I don't think it was actually 5,000. I think it was closer to 4,000, but it was pretty expensive. I got a 4090 when they were like at the peak of their price. I think they're actually still around the same price. I think my 4090 alone was like over $2,000. It was like $2,500 or something. Oh, it's literally heating my office right now. It's 77 degrees in my office. I'm kind of sweating. The PC runs really hot. And it's because I have one of those Intel processors that also runs really hot. So not only is my graphics card running hot, my processor is running hot. Which reminds me, I'm literally going to close my vents to my office. It's hot as hell in here. Spend on activities, hobbies, stuff like that? Not really, man. I'm really... I mean, you guys... Like I said, I'm a very boring person. I don't really do a whole lot. I go shooting every now and then. I spend money on that. I go to the movies. I go to restaurants, stuff like that. I'm an introverted person. I don't really do a whole lot. I do want to travel more. But as you guys have seen, I barely take days off. I might take like maybe 5 to 6 days off in an entire year. You guys are seeing me stream pretty much every trading day of the year. But yeah, I do want to travel more. I want to get out to... the next place we want to go is like... We'll probably visit like Iceland, Scotland. Do like a Northern Europe trip. I want to get out to Yellowstone as well. Those are my next few trips. The Sequoias, Yellowstone, Edinburgh, Iceland. No, I'm not a big gambler. I don't sports bet or anything like that. I do bet on UFC every now and then. Yeah, I want to go to South Korea, Japan. That's on the list. Yeah, this whole topic was just brought up because I was talking about how you guys understand how hard trading is, right? You guys understand how hard it is to make money in this business. Don't go wasting your money on shit that doesn't matter. Like if it makes you happy at the end of the day, then go ahead, right? Spend money on it. There's always a diminishing return, right? You don't want to waste so much money. A little bit here and there. You got to live life, right? Spend your money, make yourself happy. Just don't waste it. You don't need every single new iPhone that comes out. You don't need every single new car that comes out. You don't need every new watch and all this other materialistic bullshit. Every now and then, like I said, to make yourself happy, go for it. Ammo's quite expensive. You gotta buy it in bulk. You gotta buy it in bulk if you want to go shooting. You can get 9 mil around 25 cents a round, which is not terrible. You don't want to pay more than like 30 cents a round if you're shooting 9 mil, which is like the most common that people are shooting. What kind of indicator is on the 5-minute chart? That's a delta colored candles. It's coloring it based on delta. It's literally called delta colored candles if you want to look it up on Addis. My setting is 3500. No, I've never done clay targets before. Mostly just shooting range stuff. I was thinking about next year getting into like those small competitions, like the I forget what they're called. Yeah, Ammo Seek's really good. Yep, Ammo Seek is what I use. No, that's not true, Lee. I don't bring up that I go shooting guys because I really don't want to get into the whole gun debate or anything like that. I don't want to get political, so we can talk about it, but be very, very careful with what you guys say, because that will be a very fast way to get banned in my channel. Guns are, it's a very hard topic. Like I said, I shouldn't even have brought it up, but you guys were asking about hobbies, and that's one of my hobbies. And I know a lot of us in here are European or Asian, and talking about guns, if you're not an American, is very confusing. It's one of like the only countries you can actually talk about it. Keep an eye on VWeb. VWeb at 72. Are you a foodie? Yeah, I like going out to eat every now and then, restaurants and everything. I'm a big foodie on vacation. When we go on vacation, that's basically all we're doing. We're finding all the best places to eat. Like if we're going on vacation, we care more about the best places to eat than we care about like the museums and shit like that. Keep an eye on VWAP coming up at 73. If it does not bounce off VWAP, it is rotating back down to the value low. The value low goes back down to 64. When you mentioned that the break of balance failed, what's the earliest sign of that? So the sweep was the warning sign, and then the sell pressure below the node was the confirmation. So remember what I talked about. I said that when you build these nodes outside the value area, you think of them as you think of a normal D-shaped profile. You think about where their value low is, where their value high is, where their POC is. All it's doing is rotating. Rotate, 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 back and forth. Once you see that break, either to the upside or downside, that is a signal, right? That's telling you something. So this one tried to break to the upside, turned into a sweep, which indicates we did not like higher value. We want to test lower value. So then it goes back down. Then you're like, okay, how is it going to respond to the node here? That was at 84 to 85 right here. So we swept. How is it going to respond to the node? It responded very bearishly. So that was the break of balance failing. It has now come to an end. And that is how you treat every single break of balance. And we'll talk about that in the volume profile video on the series. Food is the best way to experience culture? Yeah, for sure. Do I think delta profile on the side can show absorption areas? That's literally how I teach absorption, right? that is a delta profile. Or I guess I see what you're saying. You're saying like an actual delta profile, not a volume profile showing delta. Like just a full 100% delta profile. Yes, you could see it in that as well. I personally think you see it better in a volume profile colored by the delta. But yes, I get what you're saying. You can look at it that way, but I think it's easier to see it on a volume profile with the delta information. Sorry about that, I misunderstood you at first. Yeah, I don't do reloads, Jake. I usually don't buy reloads. Little sweep on that 75 front-running VWAP. But alright guys, I think that's a good place to call it. Keep an eye on this bounce off of VWAP. If it goes back to that upper node, they're going to try to break balance yet again. Right now you are failing to rotate. You did not break through VWAP as you should have if you were going for that lower rotation back into the value low. So keep an eye on those rotations. You are in a micro pullback D-shaped profile. These profiles are typically exactly what you see right now. They're very choppy. The range is typically respected for the most part. It is typically a range that goes on damn near the entire day. So watch that value high, watch that value low. Also watch the value high and value low of yesterday, seeing if we want to break and hold outside of that value of yesterday. Right now we are a micro pullback inside of the value area of the P shape of yesterday. Okay, so we have a very slight bullish bias because of the P shape of yesterday, but overall it's pretty neutral. And you can see that slight bullish bias because look at what side they tried to break balance on. They tried to break balance to the upside. So it's showing you that very slight bullish bias. But alright guys, we'll continue the stream in Discord. If you guys are not in Discord, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe. If you guys did not see the Q&A yesterday, you can go watch it right now, or you can wait until probably tomorrow, and I'll have the cut-up version of that Q&A for you guys. It should be done by tomorrow, so look out for that. But yeah, that's all I got. If you guys want to support the channel, you can use code BREW on Apex. I don't know if they have a sale right now, but minimum you'll get a 50% off discount with that code BREW. And Addis has a 30-day trial down below. Just send me an email. Let me know which email you signed up with. I'll send it over to their team, and you'll get a full trial for 30 days. But alright guys, I'll see you in Discord. If you're not in there, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace, everybody.